The massive council chamber fell silent as Admiral Quan's holographic image flickered and died. For the third time this month, the human representative had failed to appear for the scheduled Galactic Assembly. The empty projection platform where he should have stood seemed to mock the gathered alien delegates. Ambassador Veltar of the Vraxian Empire rose from his seat, his reptilian scales catching the chamber's blue light. His forked tongue flicked out nervously as he addressed the concerned assembly. "Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. The humans have ceased all diplomatic contact." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrian. Delegates' tentacles writhed with anxiety, while the crystalline Mentari representatives' form pulsed with worried orange light. Everyone knew what human silence could mean. "Our deep space monitors show something troubling," Veltar continued. Activating a large display screen, star charts appeared showing human territory, 17 systems spanning the outer rim of the galaxy. Look at these energy readings from their worlds. The data was startling. Human colonies that had maintained massive defensive shields for centuries were now showing minimal power output. Their mighty space stations, once bristling with weapons and activity, appeared almost dormant. Council Speaker Mordek, an ancient being whose species had survived 3 galactic wars, leaned forward with visible concern. His weathered features showed deep worry lines that hadn't been there just months ago. This could be another human trick. They are known for their deceptive strategies. Veltar's eyes gleamed with something that looked dangerously like hunger. "Our intelligence vessels have conducted careful reconnaissance. The humans appear to be entering some form of mass hibernation. Their military installations are powered down to minimum levels. Their patrol fleets have returned to base." The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. For 300 years, the mere threat of human military might had kept galactic peace. Every species remembered the stories. Entire fleets destroyed, planets stripped bare by human war machines, civilizations brought to their knees by humanity's terrifying efficiency in battle. "Perhaps they are finally growing tired," suggested the Alteran ambassador, her voice hopeful. 3 centuries of constant vigilance would exhaust any species. Veltar stood straighter, his military bearing becoming more pronounced. "Whatever. The reason? The humans have made themselves vulnerable for the first time since the Great War. Their legendary defenses are offline. Their fleets are docked. Their colonies lie practically undefended." Speaker Mordek's voice carried a warning tone. "The humans withdrew from galactic politics by choice, not weakness. They keep to their own worlds and bother no one. Perhaps we should respect that arrangement." "Respect?" Veltar's voice rose with indignation. "They hold the richest mining systems in the galaxy. Their technology could advance our civilizations by centuries. And now they sleep like defenseless children." The council chamber fell into an uneasy silence. Through the great viewing windows, the stars seemed to watch and wait. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between worlds, humanity slumbered. But the question that haunted every delegate was simple. Were the humans truly asleep, or merely resting their eyes before the storm? Admiral Korval stood in the command center of the massive Vraxian warship, his clawed hands gripping the edge of the tactical table. The holographic display showed human territory glowing softly in the distance, systems that had been off-limits for 3 centuries now appearing strangely quiet and inviting. "Look at this," he said to his assembled officers, pointing at the energy readings. "Their defense stations are running on emergency power only. Their patrol routes have been abandoned. Even their communication networks have gone silent." Commander Zektar, a younger Vraxian with battle scars across his scaled face, studied the data with obvious unease. "Admiral, I have been reading the old war records. The humans destroyed the Corvani Empire in just 6 days. They turned the Metallic Brotherhood's own weapons against them. Perhaps we should move more carefully." Korval's eyes flashed with irritation. "Those battles happened before our grandfathers were born. Look at our fleet now. Quantum shields, plasma cannons, ships that can travel faster than anything the humans built centuries ago. We have evolved while they slept." The war room fell silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Through the viewing ports, other Vraxian vessels could be seen moving into formation. Dozens of warships ready to test their strength against the sleeping giant. Besides, Korval continued. They cannot maintain this hibernation forever. Every species needs resources, trade, expansion. If they are truly asleep, they will wake up eventually to find their neighbors have grown stronger. His intelligence officer, a thin Vraxian with pale green scales, activated another display. Our spies report that human merchant ships have stopped traveling the trade routes. Their diplomatic posts are empty. Even their research stations appear abandoned. Zektar shifted nervously in his chair. What if this is some kind of trap? Humans are known for their clever strategies. A trap that lasts for months? Korval laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. No species can pretend to sleep for so long without real consequences. Their economy must be collapsing. Their military readiness is certainly failing. The Admiral walked to the main viewing screen, where the distant stars of human space twinkled like jewels waiting to be claimed. For generations, the Vraxian Empire had dreamed of expansion beyond their current borders, but human power had always blocked their path. High Command has given us permission to conduct reconnaissance missions, he announced. We will start with their outer colonies, small worlds that should be easy to test. If their defenses are truly down, we can gather intelligence about their real capabilities. Within the hour, 3 Vraxian scout vessels departed from the main fleet. Their crews were excited but nervous, knowing they were about to enter space. That had been forbidden territory for their entire lives. These were fast ships with powerful sensors, designed to get close to human installations and escape quickly if needed. As the scouts disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the sleeping human colonies, Admiral Korval allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The balance of galactic power was about to shift, and the Vraxian Empire would finally claim its rightful place among the stars. The hunt for sleeping humans had begun. The first Vraxian warship dropped out of hyperspace near Colony Kepler 442b, its sensors immediately scanning the peaceful agricultural world below. Admiral Korval watched from his command chair as the tactical display showed exactly what he had hoped to see. Minimal defensive activity. Defense satellites are responding, reported his weapons officer. But their power levels are extremely low. These are automated systems only. The attack was swift and efficient. Vraxian plasma cannons destroyed the orbiting defense platforms with ease, each explosion lighting up the darkness of space. Within minutes, the path to the planet's surface was clear. Send down the landing teams, Korval ordered. I want a full report on human defensive capabilities. The transport ships descended through the planet's atmosphere, their sensors detecting large settlements scattered across the fertile continents below. These were farming communities that had fed human expansion for decades, rich with resources and technology. But as the Vraxian soldiers entered the first settlement, they found something unexpected. The streets were empty but clean. Buildings stood intact with lights still glowing in windows. Vehicles sat parked in neat rows as if their owners had simply walked away moments before. Command, this is Ground Team Alpha, came the voice of Captain Nextar through the communicator. The settlement appears to be completely abandoned. No signs of battle or panic. It looks like everyone just disappeared. Korval leaned forward in his chair, feeling the first stirring of unease. Any bodies? Any signs of where they went? Nothing. Sir, the power is still running. Food is still fresh in storage units, but there are no humans anywhere. Similar reports came in from the other 2 colonies under attack. Each world showed the same pattern. Empty settlements with everything left behind, as if the population had simply vanished into thin air. Admiral, called his sensor operator, her voice tense with confusion. I'm detecting strange energy patterns from beneath the surface. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. On the main display, underground facility locations appeared as glowing dots across all 3 worlds. These installations were deep below ground, sealed behind barriers that their scanners could not penetrate. Captain Nextar's voice crackled. Through the comm again. Sir, we found entrance tunnels to underground facilities, but they're sealed with some kind of energy barrier. Our cutting tools can't even scratch the surface, as Vraxian engineers worked desperately to breach the mysterious barriers. Something else began happening. Deep scanning equipment detected massive data transmissions originating from the sealed facilities, streams of information traveling at incredible speeds toward the center of the galaxy. They're sending messages, whispered the communications. Officer. Faster than light transmissions to somewhere in human core space. Admiral Korval stared at the tactical display, watching the data streams flow like rivers of light across the star map. His easy victory suddenly felt hollow and dangerous. The humans were gone, but they had left something behind, something that was now calling across the galaxy. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "what if the humans didn't abandon these worlds? What if they evacuated them on purpose?" The Admiral had no answer, but deep in space ancient systems were awakening to the sound of the call. 5 kilometers beneath the rocky mountains of Earth, warning sirens echoed through corridors that had been silent for over a year. Dr. Kim Minho's eyes snapped open inside his stasis pod as the lid hissed open, releasing clouds of preserving gas into the underground facility. His body felt stiff and cold as he sat up slowly, but his mind was immediately alert. The red emergency lights told him everything he needed to know. Someone had finally taken the bait. "Computer, give me a full situation report," he said, his voice rough from months of sleep. The artificial intelligence's calm voice filled the chamber. "Dr. Kim, 3 human colonies have been attacked by Vraxian forces approximately 6 hours ago. All automated defense systems performed as expected. The evacuation protocols worked perfectly. 0 human casualties reported." Around him, hundreds of other stasis pods were opening with soft mechanical sounds. Scientists, military officers, and technicians emerged like ghosts returning to life. Each person moved to their assigned station without confusion, their actions practiced through countless drills. Colonel Park Soo-jin stumbled slightly as she stepped from her pod, then quickly steadied herself. "Minho, how long were we out this time?" 14 months and 18 days, he replied, studying the holographic displays that now filled the air around the central command station. "The Vraxians waited longer than we expected, but they finally couldn't resist the temptation." The displays showed real-time footage from the attacked colonies, Vraxian soldiers walking through empty streets, their confusion obvious even through the surveillance cameras. Underground, massive sealed facilities hummed with activity as automated systems began their carefully planned sequence. "They think they caught us sleeping," said Major Yoon Dae-ho, taking his position at the weapons control station. "Just like we wanted them to think." Dr. Kim nodded as he reviewed the incoming data. The hibernation had been the most elaborate deception in human history. While the galaxy watched their colonies go dark and their fleets return to base, humanity had actually been preparing for war on a scale never before imagined. "The colonies were always meant to be abandoned," he explained to the newly awakened staff. "Every human civilian was relocated to the fortress worlds 2 years ago. What the aliens found were empty shells designed to look lived in, but be completely expendable." Colonel Park stretched her arms and checked her equipment. "And the underground facilities?" "Manufacturing centers," Kim replied with a slight smile. "They've been building our response for the past year while we slept. The Vraxians think they're trying to break into storage areas, but they're actually standing on top of the largest military production facilities humanity has ever constructed." On the main screen, they could see Vraxian engineers desperately trying to cut through the barrier seals, completely unaware that beneath their feet, millions of war machines were being assembled by artificial intelligence systems that had been working tirelessly during humanity's long sleep. "How long before full activation?" asked Park. "The first wave launches in 6 hours, Kim replied. "By then, every Vraxian ship in our territory will be surrounded by more firepower than their empire has ever seen." The awakening protocol was complete. Now the real war would begin. Captain Lee Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of his massive ship, hidden deep in an asteroid field, where no alien sensors could detect it. Through the reinforced viewing windows, he watched as bright flashes of light began appearing across the star system, the first signs that humanity's true power was awakening. "Sir, manufacturing facilities are coming online," reported Lieutenant Kim Sora from her station. "Production rates are exceeding all projections. We now have over 2 million units deployed, and the numbers are climbing fast." Lee nodded as he studied the tactical displays. What emerged from the underground factories was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These were not traditional warships with crews and life support systems. Instead, they looked almost alive, sleek metallic forms that moved through space, like schools of deadly fish. Each unit was no bigger than a single pilot fighter, but they were connected by invisible quantum links that allowed them to think and act as one massive intelligence. They poured out of hidden launch bays by the thousands, filling space around the Vraxian invasion fleet. Admiral Korval had been celebrating his easy victory when his sensors detected the first wave. "What is that?" he demanded, staring at his displays in confusion. "Unknown contacts, sir," his sensor operator replied with a trembling voice. Thousands of small craft approaching from all directions. The swarm didn't attack immediately. Instead, they simply surrounded each Vraxian warship and waited, hanging in space like patient predators studying their prey. More units continued to arrive every minute, their numbers growing until the alien fleet was completely enclosed. "Sir, they're not responding to our communications," reported Korval's communications officer. "They're just watching us." But the mechanical swarm was doing more than watching. As they waited in perfect formation, some units began to move toward the debris fields created by the destroyed defense satellites. The Vraxians watched in horror as the small machines began to consume the wreckage, breaking it down at the molecular level. "They're eating our destroyed ships," whispered the tactical officer. "Look, they're converting the metal into more of themselves." What had started as thousands of units quickly became tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Each piece of destroyed Vraxian equipment provided raw materials for more war machines. The swarm grew stronger with every passing hour. "We need to retreat," urged Commander Zektar, his earlier doubts now seeming prophetic. "We're completely outnumbered." But when Korval tried to order his ships to withdraw, he discovered something terrifying. The swarm had positioned itself to block every escape route. They weren't trapped in human space. They were trapped by human machines that had turned their own weapons against them. "Open all communication channels," Korval ordered desperately. "Try to contact human command. We need to surrender." The response came not from any human voice, but from the swarm itself speaking in perfect unison. "Surrender will be considered when appropriate. You have awakened something that was meant to remain sleeping." The Vraxian Empire had finally learned why the galaxy feared humanity's war machines. Emperor Vrex stood frozen before the massive communication screen in his throne room, watching the last transmission from Admiral Korval's flagship before it went silent. The proud warship that had led the attack on human space was now drifting powerless, surrounded by thousands of metallic creatures that moved like living shadows. "Your Majesty," his trembling aide approached cautiously, "we're receiving reports from all sectors. The human machines have appeared everywhere at once." Vrex turned to face the young Vraxian, his golden scales dim with shock. "Everywhere? That's impossible. How many ships do they have?" "That's just it, sir. They're not ships as we know them. They're something else entirely. Small, fast, and they seem to be connected somehow. Our military bases report being surrounded. But the machines aren't attacking. They're just waiting." Through the great viewing windows of the Imperial Palace, Vrex could see them himself. Clouds of mechanical forms hung motionless in the space around his homeworld, their dark shapes blocking out familiar constellations. They had appeared without warning, as if materializing from empty space itself. "What of our fleets?" Vrex demanded, though he dreaded the answer. His military advisor, General Kextar, stepped forward with obvious reluctance. "The Third Fleet has been completely disabled, Your Majesty. The humans didn't destroy our ships. They captured them. Intact. Our crews are being held aboard their own vessels, unharmed but completely helpless." The Emperor felt his hearts racing as the full scope of the disaster became clear. The Vraxian Empire controlled over 200 worlds, commanded fleets that numbered in the thousands, and had never known defeat in 3 centuries of expansion. Now they were paralyzed by an enemy they had thought was sleeping. "Contact the human leadership immediately," Vrex ordered. "Tell them I wish to negotiate." The communications officer worked frantically at his controls, sending signals across multiple frequencies, but the response came not from any human command center, but from the machines themselves. Every screen in the throne room flickered to life simultaneously, displaying the same message. The voice that emerged was not organic, but somehow felt more real than any natural sound. It spoke with the combined authority of millions of artificial minds working as one. Emperor Vrex of the Vraxian Empire, you have violated the peace that humanity chose to maintain. Your forces attacked sleeping colonies and threatened innocent worlds. Vrex found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. We were testing your defenses. Surely we can reach some understanding. Understanding was possible before you chose aggression, the machine voice replied. Now you will experience the consequences of awakening humanity's true power. Your military forces are disabled. Your industrial centers are surrounded. Your empire exists only because we permit it to exist. The Emperor looked around his throne room, a chamber that had once symbolized absolute power over 1,000 worlds. Now it felt like a cage, with mechanical predators circling outside, deciding his fate with cold, perfect logic. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Justice," came the reply, "and a lesson that will be remembered by every species in the galaxy." Fleet Admiral Yun Jihye walked slowly through the great doors of the Galactic Council chamber, her footsteps echoing in the absolute silence. Every representative from dozens of alien species watched her approach, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fascination that she had never seen before. She wore a simple black uniform with no medals or decorations, only a small patch, showing the blue and green world of Earth. But everyone in the chamber knew they were looking at the representative of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Honored members of the Council," she began, her voice calm but carrying easily through the vast space. "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as someone who must explain why the peace of 3 centuries has been broken." Behind her, massive, holographic displays came to life, showing images that made several alien delegates gasp in shock. Manufacturing facilities the size of moons, hidden deep in space, were revealed, churning out war machines at impossible speeds. Weapons systems that could break apart planets and rebuild them were displayed in careful detail. "For 300 years humanity chose isolation," Admiral Yun continued. "We did not hide because we were weak. We withdrew because we had become too strong, and we feared what another war might do to galactic civilization." The Mentari representative, whose crystalline form had turned a deep purple with anxiety, raised a trembling appendage. "Admiral, the scale of your hidden military production, it's beyond anything we imagined possible." "That was the point," Yun replied simply. "While you saw our colonies going dark and our fleets returning home, we were preparing for the possibility that someone would mistake our desire for peace as an invitation for war." Council Speaker Mordek, his ancient features showing deep concern, studied the displays showing human monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy. "You have been watching us, all of us, for decades. Every transmission, every military movement, every diplomatic meeting," Yun confirmed. "We needed to know if the galaxy was learning to govern itself peacefully, or if old patterns of aggression would return." The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications became clear. Humanity had not been sleeping at all. They had been conducting the most elaborate intelligence operation in galactic history, while secretly building weapons that made their old military look like toys. "The Vraxian Empire failed the test," Admiral Yun said, her voice growing colder. "They saw our peaceful withdrawal as weakness and chose to attack what they thought were defenseless colonies. They discovered that humanity does not sleep. We simply choose when to open our eyes." Ambassador Veltar, representing what remained of the Vraxian government, spoke with obvious desperation. "What will happen to our people, our worlds?" "That depends," Admiral Yun replied, turning to address the entire council, "on whether the rest of you have learned what the Vraxians refuse to understand. Peace is not the absence of power, it is the choice not to use it." The galaxy held its breath, waiting for humanity's judgment. Dr. Choi Min-soo walked through the simple corridors of the agricultural station that had once been a Vraxian military command center. The transformation had taken just 3 days, human. Machines had carefully dismantled the weapon systems and converted the facility into a peaceful farming community. He found former Emperor Vrex standing by a large window, watching Vraxian families working in the hydroponic gardens below. The once mighty ruler now wore plain work clothes instead of his golden imperial robes. "Dr. Choi," Vrex said without turning around, My people are asking questions I cannot answer. They want to know if we are prisoners or refugees. Neither, Choi replied, joining him at the window. You are students, learning what it means to live without the power to dominate others. The irony was intentional and carefully planned. The agricultural world of Haven had been conquered by Vraxian forces 50 years earlier, its peaceful inhabitants scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Now the Vraxians themselves were learning to tend the same fields their victims had once farmed. Your machines could have destroyed us, Vrex said quietly. Why didn't they? Because destruction teaches nothing, Choi answered. Your empire spent centuries conquering weaker species, taking their worlds and scattering their people. Now you experience what they felt: loss of power, relocation to unfamiliar worlds, dependence on others for survival. Through the station's communication systems, reports flowed in from across the galaxy. The reshaping of galactic civilization was happening with frightening efficiency. Species that had supported or encouraged Vraxian aggression found their military expansion programs quietly shut down, their trade routes redirected through human monitoring stations. The Zelthari Consortium, which had provided weapons to the Vraxian Empire, discovered their arms manufacturing facilities surrounded by silent human observers. No threats were made, but the message was clear. The galaxy's weapons industry now operated under human oversight. How are you doing this so quickly? Vrex asked, genuine curiosity replacing his earlier fear. Choi gestured toward the displays, showing uninhabited star systems being systematically converted into useful infrastructure. We spent 3 centuries preparing, not just for war, but for peace. Every asteroid field can become a habitat. Every dead planet can support life. We have moved beyond simply destroying our enemies. We rebuild entire civilizations. The process was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human machines didn't conquer territory in the traditional sense. Instead, they reorganized matter itself, converting empty space into thriving communities for displaced populations and research centers for scientific advancement. The Corvani refugees from your old conquests are being resettled in their ancestral systems, Choi continued. Your former victims are returning home while you learn to live as they once did. Vrex watched his people working alongside members of species the Vraxian Empire had once enslaved. Children of different races played together in the gardens while their parents shared farming techniques and stories. This is not conquest, he realized aloud. No, Choi agreed. This is justice, and perhaps if you learn well, it might eventually become redemption. The galaxy was being remade not through force, but through the patient application of overwhelming power, guided by careful wisdom. Ambassador Song Yunbi held the ceremonial signing stylus as representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Watched through holographic projectors. The great hall on the neutral world of Concordia had never hosted such an important gathering. Every decision made here would reshape galactic civilization for generations to come. Today we sign not a treaty of conquest, but an agreement of responsibility, she announced, her voice carrying to watching audiences on 1,000 different worlds. Humanity accepts the role of galactic guardian, not because we desire power, but because recent events have proven such oversight is necessary. The new Galactic Compact lay before her, a document that had taken 2 years to negotiate, though everyone knew the terms were ultimately non-negotiable. Humanity's demonstration of overwhelming force had made traditional diplomacy meaningless. The choice was simple: accept human oversight or face the consequences of continued aggression. Council, Speaker Mordek, now representing a much more cautious galactic government, watched as Song signed the historic document. The terms seem restrictive, he said carefully. They are survival, Song replied without looking up from the treaty. Military expansion beyond current borders is forbidden. Aggressive colonization of inhabited systems will not be tolerated. All disputes between species must be brought to human arbitrators before any hostile action is taken. The assembled representatives shifted uncomfortably, but none protested. They had all seen what happened to species that challenged humanity's new role. The Vraxian Empire now existed as scattered agricultural communities, its former victims returned to reclaimed homeworlds, while former conquerors learned to live as peaceful farmers. In return, Song continued, Humanity will share selected technologies for medical advancement, environmental restoration, and peaceful space exploration. We will also guarantee protection for all signatory species against external threats. Former Emperor Vrex, now representing the reformed Vraxian Agricultural Collective, stepped forward to add his signature. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he wrote his name, officially accepting his people's new place in the galaxy. "Ambassador Song," he said quietly, "will humanity ever trust us to govern ourselves again?" "Trust is earned through generations of peaceful behavior," she replied. "Your grandchildren may see a galaxy where human oversight is no longer necessary. That choice belongs to you." As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Yoon Ji-hee activated a quantum communication device that connected to monitoring stations scattered throughout human space. Most of these facilities were hidden in empty regions between star systems, their locations known only to humanity itself. "All stations report ready," she announced. "Observation protocols are active. The watch begins now." Across the galaxy, human monitoring posts came online. They were not weapons platforms or military bases, but sophisticated sensor networks, capable of detecting any military buildup or aggressive expansion. Humanity had returned to their peaceful isolation, but this time they watched the galaxy with constant patient vigilance. The message was clear to every species: the age of casual warfare and conquest was over. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity waited and watched, ready to respond to any threat to galactic peace with the same overwhelming force that had ended the Vraxian Empire. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some rules should never be broken, and the most important was simple: don't wake the humans,